Hey guys, it's Nate. I'm just going to jump right into it today. So today I want to talk about how buying local is one of the largest moral choices that we can make right now. So I think that this is really important for a few reasons. So first, an obvious one is the carbon emissions that occur when you buy non-locally. So if you're buying from another country or even another state, it takes transportation to get whatever you're buying to get to where you are. So that instantly causes carbon emissions because of the method of transportation, whether it be a plane or a vehicle on the ground, whatever it is. So that just causes a lot of carbon emissions and possibly even more packaging because of that. If things are being shipped to you, there's often more packaging, so there's just no way to avoid that. So I think that's probably the most obvious reason. But the next reason I think is when you buy local, you're more likely to not be supporting the top 1%, the giant corporate businesses. When you buy local, you're supporting your local community. And that's a really important thing because right now we have this huge wealth inequality gap that's going on. And the top 1% have the majority of the wealth, but the reason that they have the majority of the wealth is because we are all spending our money on the products and the services that the top 1% offer. So you think about like McDonald's, think about shopping at Walmart, through Amazon. Those huge companies are getting so much business, and a lot of people will complain about the wealth inequality, but what they don't realize, I think, is that they're contributing to it by purchasing these products and services from the top 1%, by giving them more money. And what do those people that get the money do? They keep the money and they just hoard it in their bank accounts, or they spend it on their third beach house or their sixth car. So that's a really, I think, a big deal when it comes down to it, is where we spend our money. You may have heard the term that we vote with our dollar. I think this is a really important concept, especially right now in society, because a lot of the times we think that, you know, our vote does matter. Everybody gets one vote, and that's evenly split that way. But the people that we end up voting for are usually people who are endorsed by corporate businesses, who have been lobbied by them, or are already in with the giant political parties. So when it comes down to our individual vote and who we actually get to vote on, our choices are limited to who has been put in front of us, that is already on both sides being supported by corporate businesses. So it's more important for us right now to vote with our dollar, because eventually if we do this efficiently enough, then we'll actually be able to make a change politically where people who aren't in the top 1% are people that we have the ability to vote for. So you look at someone like Bernie Sanders, who has been running for this election and the last election. Now it's recently come out that he is joining the top 1% because of a book he wrote. But this is a primary example, especially in the last election, for he actually, wasn't a wealthy person, and he was getting the donations from individuals. It was a bunch of small donations rather than huge donations from super PACs and from being lobbied from corporate businesses. So that is a promising thing to see that's happening already. But it comes down to more than just politics. It comes down to everyday life, where these other people who are being put in front of us to that we have the option to vote for are still being supported by corporate sponsors. So if we can change where the money flow is going and start to reduce the wealth inequality gap, we'll actually have more of a choice what happens politically, which affects everybody in the country. So I think that's a really important thing about buying local, is that we stop supporting the top 1%ers. We start supporting our local communities. You've probably heard the term money is power, and often it's looked at as like power is a bad thing, but power is not a bad thing. Power is just the ability to do something. We all have a certain amount of power in our daily lives to do basic things, but when you look at the way that the wealth inequality is right now, the top 1% have a lot of power and influence because they have money, which controls resources, and everybody needs money. Money is a big deal. So money is power, and you have to think of it when you're spending every single dollar that you spend, you're giving whoever that is power. So do you want these top 1%ers to have more power, or do you want your local community members who live the same type of life that you do, who have the same type of views that you do, to have more power? And the cool thing about buying local and spending money in local businesses is that these companies usually keep the money in the local community. So they'll give back to the community somehow. They'll organize events within the community. So it's just a positive cycle to start when you start buying local, because local businesses support other local businesses. It's always more powerful to spend within your own community. So I think that actually brings me to the next point, which is when you buy local, you're actually getting a better quality of product and of service. I've seen this with when you see businesses get bigger and bigger, their service drops, their quality of product drops, because they're serving bigger amounts of people, and their services have to become more generalized for that reason. But a lot of the times that we like local businesses is because they're so specialized, and because we are able to go to them for what our individual needs are. So local companies are actually able to be more personal when it comes to their service and their products. And it's harder for them not to care when they can actually see you face to face, rather than when you try to reach a giant company over their customer service line and they just give you a number and you go through the system and so on and so forth. It's harder for them to actually give you good, personalized, individual care. And in addition to that, because it's harder not to care, local businesses do care more, but in general, local businesses seem to care more anyway. So that's a really important thing, is that when you spend local, you're getting a better quality of service and better quality of care. So, for example, I used to work for a grocery store that is local to the state that I live in, but it's becoming really big. It's actually spreading out across the entire state now. And when I started the job, we had the orientation, and they talked about how, we're local and we do all these things for the community and stuff. But when I actually started to work for them, I could tell that they didn't value their employees that much, because they were so focused on meeting their sales goals and trying to build their company. So it became less focused on their employees and less focused on the service they were getting, and more focused on just the gain that the company was getting. My girlfriend actually works for a grocery store right now, who actually is very small and local. They only have 3 or 4 stores, and the difference is that they actually do the things that I heard that the other company did in my orientation. And it's interesting because she actually works with a couple of people right now who used to work for that other grocery store. And they said they left because they were there for 15, 20 years, and they left because they could see that the employees were starting to be treated worse and the quality was going down. And so they went to a smaller, more local business to keep the quality of care and service and products up. So it's a really important thing, and the care drops when the companies are bigger, because they have so much money and all they care about is forking in that money more and more. So you want to put the power where it should be, which is locally, because the local people have your best interest in mind, not their own interests in mind. They're part of the community and they're trying to increase that. Sometimes it is impossible not to buy from larger companies. So technology is a really good example of this. It's hard not to buy technology from a large company right now, because it's pretty rare to find a local company who makes great phones or great laptops or whatever that could be. Those are large-scale production items. So if you're going to do that, do your research on that. Look at human values when it comes to that. How do they treat their employees? How much are they paying their employees? Where is the product coming from? Is it coming from an outsourced country where they're paying them, cents on the hour? That makes a big difference to their lives, the employees' lives. So you want to consider that when you are buying from larger companies. So a lot of people's biggest resistance to this change and this idea is that they have to spend more money to buy local. And And, sure, that's hard, but in the long run, it's way more worth it to spend more money locally because the economy will actually change and there will be a shift in the way that money is flowing if you start to spend locally. And eventually, it may not be that you're spending any more money. You may be spending the same exact amount. And it's worth it in the long run because it starts to take the money away from that 1%. It starts to decrease that wealth inequality gap, and the wealth starts to go to the people more rather than just the top 1%. So I think that's probably the biggest objection that people have to this view, and I wanted to give why I think it's still worth it to do it. I mean, yes, it's more expensive, but the quality of product's better. You get better service every time you go to purchase something, and in the long run, it will be worth it, and things will improve. So that's what I want to talk about today. So thanks for watching, guys. Again, my name's Nate. Subscribe below. I'll put my link to my blog below as well on Medium if you want to check that out. Appreciate you watching and have a good one.